Welcome everyone to Neverwinter on PC. My name is Rainer and today I will be guiding you on how to build your ranger for the Zariel's challenge. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you would like to see more information over this about Neverwinter, hit the subscribe button. So as you can see, I'm here with my trusty old Character Builder Plus. It's a new version, it's not out yet, and it has some additional features which helped me make these builds. And when I release the builds, I will be doing that together with this new character builder. Before we start, I want to touch upon what's new. First of all, we have the combat simulator here, which is very important. In this combat simulator, you can basically say what the situation is, and this will also add your equip powers that are only active in combat. They will now show up in your statistics. So I want to enable this. For Zariel, we have a long combat, so let's make this max, and we will have a lot of hits. I think it only stacks up to 5, but let's just make this maximum. I need to change this to 0, but it doesn't make a big difference. So I've set up this will change like this, and that will not change anymore. As for the buffs, I want to keep this also prepped for everything with the default setup: Grace of Battle for the Invocation Blast and Prime Rip, Wildstorm Elixir for some extra critical severity, Flask of Potency +1 for critical severity, and the Watermelon Sorbet. I've worked all around this here. Let's also add the campfire buff, because the trial will, I think it's close to 15 minutes, so you will do most of it with the campfire debuff. So let's go to the first. Well, before we go to the first build, let's touch upon something that we do for all builds. So for all builds, I will be using the critical severity bonus. Well, let me actually load the first build. For all builds, I will be using the critical severity bonus in the guild boons. So take that into account with the values. Then we will not have an active artifacts for any of the builds. Well, maybe for the final one. We will be using the Dragonborn race for all the builds, so not the metallic Dragonborn, which gives additional HP bonus. All the builds will use one Tenebris enchantment. All the builds will go full dexterity and intelligence. The feats are all the same. It's the same as before, so Focus, Storms, Recovery, Blade, Hurricane, Skirmishes, Gambit, and Enhanced Connectivity. We will use Vorpal as a weapon enchantment and Bark Shield as an armor enchantment for all of them. We will use a Bulwark and Resiliency Overload enchantment. So this is also something new. We can now also add in Overload enchantments, and they actually work. So this Bulwark will give us 5% extra maximum hit points, and the Resiliency will give 5% physical damage reduction, which actually works in the trial. It reduces the weight of virtue damage, which is very important. So we will be using those overloads in all of the builds here. All of the builds will use all stamina regen armor kits for the neck, 2 rings and waist. For the companions, we will always use the Battery, Raptor and Deepcrow. As the offense, the other two will change. And all the builds will use the music box set. So let's start with explaining you actually why I made so many builds. You could all already see it. I have 8 here. And that's because there's a lot of different kind of players. Some players don't have the 50k HP mount, and this is a build for them. And some do. So you already have 2 different kinds of players. Then you have players that just started with mod 19 and they just have mod 18 gear, and players who have grinded their mod 19 gear. So that's another 2 variations. So we have 2 times 4, 2 is 4. And then as the last thing, and this is for ranger specific, there is talk about buffing the Skirmisher's Gambit. Currently it reduces critical strike by 10,000, and the talk right now is that this reduction will be 5,000 in mod 19. It's not final yet, but I also made builds taking this into account. So it's not 4, but 2 times 4, because I made a build for each of the variants again. So we have 8 in total. And then as a cherry on top, I removed my limitations on the class and or actually the race, and I also made a metallic dragonborn build as a 9th build. So we have 9 builds in this video. I don't know how long it's going to get. I hope it's not going to get too long. But yeah, this is going to be a good overview for all of those types of players, how to make an optimized build. And we already know for Zariel's challenge you need 500,000 HP, you need at least 200,000 power, 190, 200,000, in combat it will be more of course. We need our armor pen capped, defense capped, we need crit capped, accuracy capped, and combat advantage capped. So if we go to the first build, and this is the most basic build, so you don't have any of the new gear, you don't have a 50k HP mount, so this will be the most limited build and the, let's say the cheapest one, something like that. Yeah, this is probably the cheapest one. You're not using a compy and not using the war triceratops, so you're saving a lot of money on there. And you'll see HP, it's a little bit below 500,000, but that's something that you can work with. This is sufficient if you have a good paladin that can shield you, I guess. Then power in combat, this is in combat, so this is 221. Let me also show you. If you remove this, your power will drop down, but you still have 200,000 base power in this build. Well, in a party. If you're not in a party, of course you have less. We have armor penetration caps, we have defense capped, we have critical severity, critical strike enough, more than enough. We have combat advantage capped and accuracy. I already said that. And then we have critical severity, of course, also important. We have at 158.5%, so a lot of it. You can see that it's more than possible to make a build without Stalwart for Zariel. So this is already to calm down the riots going on for the Zariel's challenge. To do the challenge, you don't need a compy and you don't need a Stalwart mount. You can take the 25k, but you will lose a little bit of power. This works just fine. Let me actually set this to Zariel's challenge to make this more clear. How did I make this build? Let's go through it. As I said already, we always have Dark Dragonborn decks int, all decks int. For the gear, we have this gear. It's nothing too special, I guess. Lion Guard, head and arms. We have Steel of the Stars. This one is a little bit tricky to grind. Infernal Forge Gators. We have the music box set. The rings didn't change from before. Pants of the Sentinel, of course. Pants of the Keeper also will work. And Infernal Forged Assault shirt. And we don't have an active artifact. If you have another Storyteller's Journal in here, your hit points will be more than enough and power will also be super high. So let's say we put in the Flayed. Of course we're not going to get the Flayed as active. We will use Frozen or Invented as active. But you will see we will be more than enough for HP and power. But we're going to look without this. As the utility enchantments, we will use Darks everywhere for maximum stats. This will reduce our incoming healing slightly, but because we are a Dragonborn, we still have 5%. For all the other slots that are still free, we use Radiance. And we have one Tenebris, of course, as I said before. So all Radiance, just like before. Then for the armor kits, I use hit points. Hit points, hit points, and hit points. Obviously, we need a lot of hit points. The offhand power, I actually use power here. I'm not using the hit points. You can use hit points if you think you're still too squishy. You can change this. Actually, this could be at 2500, but whatever. So yeah, you could actually get even more hit points without the stalwart mount. But I'm using power in this example. Then in the companion screen, we use, of course, the energon in utility and the iron golem and defense for more hit points and a little bit of extra defense. Then for the mounts, don't look at the mounts themselves. We use 3 fortitude insignias. Oops, not this. Here, here's 1, and here's 2 more, and the other ones are all brutality, I think. Maybe so. All brutality and 3 fortitude. And I'm using 1 assassin's covenant here, 2 competence maneuver, and 2 gladiator's guile. The competence maneuver, you can actually change it to something else. You don't need extra combat advantage here, so something else would be fine. Combat power, swarm or T-Rex or a griffin, if you have them. Most people will have them. Then the companion gear, I'm using the Ivory-grown icon, Imperial diamond belt, or the chain and the chain talisman. I think this one has an alternative. There are 2 items with the same Imperial diamond and Imperial diamond belt. Where is it here? Yeah, or the pristine belt. They both have exactly the same statistics for some reason, so you can use either of those. That's okay. And then in the runestones we have actually here 2 recondites in here for extra accuracy to cap that. We have the rest is all empowered for extra power and profane enchantment for extra defense. So that's basically how I get to it. The boons, as I said, critical severity, hit points and revive sickness would be optimal. And here you can see I'm also using, actually for all the builds as well, focus retaliation, severe criticism, and call of power. And of course the power boons and the hit point boons, demonic mastery, marathon runner, and simple support. This is all the same. And then I have a couple points to cap off the rest. I did put maximum in defense, and you can see it's overcapped. So you could say I can remove some stuff here. The issue with that is that if you would, no, wrong screen, if you would die, you would lose, amongst others, the invocation blessing. And that would mean that your defense, it's still a problem. It drops below capped if you lose this invocation blessing. And why is this a problem? Because the invocation blessing is a random buff, and it's very easy to not get it anymore. So you can of course try during the challenge to try and get it, but you could get one of the other ones randomly, and of course that's not going to be very nice. For the event food you also lose it, and of course your accuracy is not kept anymore, but the watermelon sorbet is easy to eat again, and then you'll be nicely kept on that again. So that's why I'm trying to actually get more defense, about 91,300 with all the buffs up. So I need 400 more. And for this build, it's not, well, it's probably possible, but I would have to give up some more power for that. And I think this is more optimized for this build. Then one more thing. For this one, this is another thing that I added to the character builder. I will still make a video on that, by the way, but just to show you, I also made a survivability analyzer, and this is also important because we're making builds for this thing here, so we want to be able to survive this. We have a bark shield, and we're going to use someone is going to use the knives for the big hits. And then of course, typically you will have a paladin which will give you a crit barrier on the weight of virtue. So that's to survive this with 6,000 HP. Yeah, this is basically okay. Celestial Armory, you still die here, but this is only if it hits for the maximum amount. If you kill the angels quicker, you should be good here. And maybe someone do Hallowed Grounds and maybe something else here, Phalanx, and then you'll also be okay. But yeah, you'll need some extra help to survive this hit. So that's the first build. Shall I just put this here and this on top? No, this is not very useful. Let me just put this away. Let me just tell you, all the builds will have a similar performance in survivability. But yeah, just for the first one, I wanted to show you. So what if you do have a 50k mount and you have your mod 18 gear, you want to cap your critical strike is still at 90k. You see I'm very overcapped here, but what are you gonna do? There's no way for me to remove that. So if you do have a 50k mount, we get to this one, and you can see we're now at 498 and 221. And with this build, I will give you an overview later, we have a little bit more. So the 50k mount is a little bit more efficient in stats. We go to 502 and 224k power. And of course the rest is also capped. Defense still an issue. We still don't have the 400 extra, but that's because we have almost the same build. We still have darks and utility, radiance everywhere else. We have, actually in this case, we have power armor kits instead of hit points. So all of these are now power. The offhand is still power. We have a compy here instead of the anagon. We still have the iron golem here, and we still have the 3 fortitude insignias. I don't know, do we also have dominance in here? Brutality. Here's 2 fortitudes. Yeah, I have changed 1 brutality into a dominance because I had some additional armor penetration. Probably because I switched out some boons as well here. Yeah, we put full armor penetration here so you can get a little bit more of everything. And still for this build as well, we have the same companion gear and still 2 recon dial enchantments to cap off our accuracy. Everything else is just the same as before. And as I said before, I will be releasing these save files so you can take a slow look without being rushed, because I'm trying to make this video not too long. You can take a slow look into all of the builds and you can pick which one works best for you. So let's now go to the mod 19 gear. We're still at trying to cap 90k critical strike. Mod 19 gear, let's say we don't have a 50k mount, but we have mod 19 gear. You can see we can actually get more hit points and more power than with the 50k mount, but mod 18 gear. So the mod 19 gear actually does make a difference. In this build, still we use all darks and utility and radiance everywhere else. We're back to the hit points armor kits everywhere. For the offhand, we're using health now, so hit points for the offhand artifact modification. We have, of course, the anagon in utility, and now we use the red cap's wisdom in defense for the remaining armor penetration, because we were missing a bit with this build. Then companion gear has been changed. We have the silver talisman, ivy grown grimoire, and imperial diamond belt, and I think this is again the one that has 2 versions, so you can also have a different one. And now we have 2 critical strike, 2 profane enchantments in these slots. So it's still not all power. We still need a little bit of extra statistics in this companion gear. Then, what did we change in the gear? We actually use now the Whisper's Hood for the Butcher's Precision. When you damage or heal your target for more than 10% of your maximum hit points in a single blow, your power is increased by 1500 and speed by 1%, max 5 stacks. So this is 7500 additional power and 5% movement speed, which is great. And the other item, well, also the weapons change of course, but the feat item also changed. When your health is greater than 85%, your power is increased by 7500. Also, probably, in my opinion, is best installed. Also because it gives a lot of defense here. That also, because this one gives so much defense, means that we can change out the pants of the sentinel or pants of the keeper for these infernal forged ward trousers, so we can get a little bit more deflection. We don't need the defense because we're kept, so we're just picking a little bit of deflection. As for the weapons, of course, we use the celestial weapons, which are best in slot. Once you grinded it, you can use these. The nice thing about this build is that you have a little bit more defense. If you would lose your invocation blessing, you're still kept, so that's very important. As for the boons, they look like this. We have 1 point in armor penetration, we have 4 points in defense to get this invocation blessing insurance, let's say it. We have some points in deflect and critical avoidance. Actually, we could put everything in deflect because deflect is better than critical avoidance in my opinion. And we have 2 extra points in critical strike to reach this 90k. So, still we're using the critical severity boon, of course. Then, what if you have the mod 19 gear and you have the 50k mount? Then we go to Zariel builds. Mod 19, Zariel build this one. We go to this one. As you can see, we actually have a little bit less hit points, but we do have a lot more power. And once again, I will give you the overview in a second, so you will be able to see exactly how they compare. The other stat difference here is that we actually use 2 tacticals here, and this will give us a little bit bigger shields, so the loss of hit points is it's okay. You could put 1 or 2 back to darks and you will have more hit points and more power, but I don't mind taking 2 tacticals here just to get those bigger shields, and that will make you survive more easily. We use the hit points armor kits in here, 4 of them, and the offhand is also hit points. We have in the ultimate build, we have a compy in our utility, and again a red cap wisdom in our defense. Of course, we use the 50k mount here, and we have, I think there's no, well, the last one had 4 fortitude insignias. I think I forgot to show that. This one has none. Now that I say that, we have 1 here. We have 1, and the rest is brutality or dominance. As many dominance as possible, because that will give you the most power, and it also gives some hit points actually as well. So now that's actually, as you could think, all the builds that you need, right? Here's the overview. This is the one with mod 18 gear, and without the 50k mount you can see 498 and 221 power in combat. With the 50k mount we win about 4000 hit points and about 3000 power. If we have the 9000 gear but no HP mount, we actually get more hit points and more power, because the new gear is actually that good. And then with the mod 19 gear and the 50k mount, we lose a little bit of hit points, but as I said, you win that back with the tacticals that you can use, and you have still a little bit more power. But there are still some things happening on preview. On the forums we can see, actually in the Ranger feedback thread, that No Worries posted this post, and that they're making changes to the Ranger, and a lot of these are trapper buffs, but I don't want to get into that. The one that is important for these builds is here Skirmish's Gambit. As I said, they want to reduce the critical strike penalty to 5k. What does this mean? Now the penalty is 10,000, the penalty will be 5,000, so we will have 5,000 more critical strike. So that means we don't need 90k critical strike to cap, but actually 85k, because we get 5k back from this buff. And then we still have 90k of course, but right now in the tool, Skirmish's Gambit removes 10k. So we would only need 85k critical strike here. So let's actually do all the builds with that in mind, because needing less critical strike means we can focus more on other stuff. So let's go to the mod 18 gear with well, no 50k mount, so no stalwart there, no wartrike. You can see we have 227k power, so I think that's almost as much as the last one. We are a little bit low on hit points, but it's still in the okay range. We have critical strike at 85k as we need. Our penetration is capped. Defense still has the issue that we cannot lose the invocation blessing. Accuracy is capped and combat advantage is capped by far. Critical severity is still nicely up there. So what did we change to get our critical strike down compared to the normal 90k build for this build? We actually changed our companion gear. I'm using the burned belt, which I think I'm already using. The gold leaf grimoire with 12k combat advantage and the ivy grown grimoire with armor penetration combat advantage. I think I'm actually just using these items. Also, as for the runestones, we're using profane in defense and the rest is all empowered. So we don't have anything here anymore that we have to put in something else. Also, we swapped the boons around a little bit to cap off everything, as you can see here. And this is a small penalty, we had to put one azure in offense. But this is worth it compared to the putting a critical strike runestone in the companion gear. This works better. But we need a little bit more critical strike. We don't have critical strike anymore in our companion gear. It's all accuracy, defense, combat advantage and armor penetration combat advantage. So no more crit here. So we needed some source to get a little bit of this, and that's the azure here. In this build we still have the sentinel stuff and the rest is all the same as before. So yeah, so we have a little bit more power again here. If we have the 50k mount with the 85k restriction or freedom, we get to these stats. We even have more power, 231, and our hit points are above 500,000. For this one we used this is the same as before, the burn belt, gold leaf, grimoire and ivy. This is the same, still all empowered. We swapped the boons. Actually we did the same change as the other 90k crit build with the 50k mount, so the change is exactly the same. Then with the mod 19 gear and the 85k restriction, without the mount we get to 227 and 50, almost 504. Still no tacticals. For this one we had actually an easier change. Before we had 2 crit enchantments in here and now we only use 1. And I think apart from that I only changed the boons. I don't need critical strike boons here anymore, so I just removed them and put the points in something else. We have 5 deflect and 2 critical avoidance now. Just to get a bit more of that. For the final builds, well, it's not the final builds, but for the, if you have 50k mount and mod 19 gear and you are aiming for the 85k, we get the 503 and 233k power in combat, and here we did exactly the same. So we just removed one of the critical strike runestones, changed it to power, and we changed the boons. That's all. We still have one crit point here, but these builds are nice because you can die and still cap your defense. So yeah, that's 8 builds in one already. I have one more as a cherry on top. That one is here. And this one, as I said, I want to use the metallic dragonborn race, so I changed it to this, which means we have more hit points because of the race. We get 10,000 extra hit points because of the race. And because of this, I could actually tweak out a bit more. I think I changed these to power. All of them, yes. The offhand is also power. So I swapped a lot into power. Actually, in this case, if you have a build like this, it's 245k power and almost 500,000 hit points. You should be using 3 Storyteller's Journals, either the Frozen or the Envenomed as an active. Both will give you these stats. But you will do a lot of damage. So yeah, I will be adding this one also when I'm releasing the new version of the character builder, and then you will have 9 builds, one for the people who have also the metallic dragonborn race, and it's using the compy, and have the 50k HP mount. As an additional overview, I can also show you this. So here we have all the builds with the 90k caps. You can see if you remove the restriction or the restriction that you need 90k critical strike, actually you can tweak this a lot nicer, and you will gain this actually makes a big difference for us rangers, this buff of the skirmisher's gambit. It means we can go in with almost 7,000, well, this is, yeah, almost 7,000 extra power. If you have the 50k mount, you gain also, well, this is 7,000, this is more than 7,000. For the mod 19 gear, you win a little bit less, but still over 4,500 power extra. And for the ultimate build here, it's more than 5,000 extra power. Here you have the last versions, and in this case, actually for this final build, we only use 1 tactical. I forgot to mention that. So yeah, a lot of builds. As I said, I will be releasing all of the CBF files, which you can load in the character builder version 0.5.2 is probably going to be. I will release that soon, and then you will be able to copy my builds. So that's all for this video, ending up with this massive build. If you have any remarks on this video or any suggestions on what to investigate next, feel free to leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.